The Mission Impossible main theme might just be the catchiest theme for any movie. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video. So today I'm doing a tier list ranking of all the characters from the Mission Impossible films. This is essentially all the main characters from all 7 movies. I'm not including every single character who's ever made an appearance in these films, just the ones that I think are the most noteworthy. So if you think I should have included a character, let me know who in the comments down below. Before I dive into this thing, be sure to hit that like button, comment down below your favorite characters, and of course subscribe and hit that notification bell to help reach my goal of 85,000 subscribers here on the channel. It would mean a lot. Also, check out my Patreon link down below for extra content, the Discord server, and much more. Without further ado, let's dive into this tier list. Alright, so the tiers I have today are best of the best, great, solid, meh, and bad. And again, there's about 30 or so characters from the Mission Impossible franchise here, fully randomized, and there will be spoilers for a lot of the movies. I won't spoil anything from Dead Reckoning Part 1, but there will be spoilers for the rest of the franchise just because it's impossible to talk about some of these characters without spoiling huge character moments. But starting out strong, we've got Ethan Hunt, Tom Cruise himself, the main man of this franchise. You already know he's going top of best of the best. He is not only the best character in this franchise and the one that everything revolves around, but he's one of the better action leads in movies, period. Like, he is a really compelling character, from the backstory with his wife to just him saving the world. There's so much to love about him, and you can't help but root for him. He's just that guy. So Ethan Hunt, top of best of the best. Then we've got Declan. This is the character from Mission Impossible 3 who flies the helicopter, and honestly, don't remember a single line that he says. He's technically part of the crew in the 3rd film, but he doesn't do much, and as tempting as it is to go bad, I think that meh probably feels appropriate. So I'll go meh, but that, honestly, that character could get moved down to bad by the end of this entire tier list ranking. But anyway, next is Benji. Benji's like the runner-up. There's like a big 3 in this franchise, and Benji's a part of it. He's going in top of best of the best, right behind our boy Ethan Hunt. Benji's introduced in the 3rd Mission Impossible film, played wonderfully by Simon Pegg. Not only is he funny and charismatic, but he just adds this flair to the crew, coming in and kind of stealing the show at times with his jokes, but also his relationship with Ethan. He's a great friend, he's loyal, he'll do whatever it takes to protect his friends, and you gotta love him for that. He's kind of a tech whiz as well. You gotta have a Benji, and he makes this franchise so much better. His introduction in 3 was special, and I'm glad that he's still kicking it as we approach Dead Reckoning Part 1, which a lot of you have probably seen. Again, I'm not gonna spoil anything that happens in the movie. Speaking of Dead Reckoning Part 1, next we've got Grace. This is a new introduction to the franchise, played by Hayley Atwell, who plays Peggy Carter in the MCU. I really was surprised with how much I like this character. I was hesitant about them introducing a new character this late in the game to the franchise, but I thought she had a very pivotal role to the film and surprisingly charming character by the end of it all. There are times where I'm like, do I like her, do I not? A little on the fence about her. Again, I'm dancing around spoilers here, but in the end, I say she's a very solid character. She could go up to great when Dead Reckoning Part 2 comes out, but for right now, I'm putting her in the solid tier. Really enjoyed her, and she's kind of this thief character, so she adds this layer of deception to Dead Reckoning Part 1. If you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm referring to, but she goes in the solid tier. Next, we have Chief Atlee from Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. I never cared for this character. He's involved in the whole creation of the Syndicate, which we'll talk more about people involved with that later on in this tier list. I'm not going to go bad. I'll go top of meh with Atlee. I feel like I prefer the character to Declan, and Atlee has more memorable moments. There's an epic mask reveal at the end of Rogue Nation, and his character is involved in that in some way, so I'd go top of meh, but he's kind of a scumbag, so yeah, there you have it. Next, we've got Jon Voight's character, Jim Phelps, from the 1st Mission Impossible film. This is a character who, at first, you're like, they're dead, I guess, and that's the case with everyone at the beginning of Mission Impossible 1. You're like, oh, they just killed off the entire main crew. Ethan Hunt is now a lone man. That's not the case. He's actually the villain of the movie, and the reveal is really clever when Ethan is looking through, I think it's the hotel Bible, and he sees that it's stamped the Drake Hotel, and we get that like flashback scene real quick. That moment sends chills down my spine, and the way that Ethan Hunt still plays along with Jim's games for a while shows why Ethan is the best character in this franchise. He can outsmart just about anybody. So even though he got outsmarted in the opening, his wits shine through later on in the movie. I think this is a very solid villain. I would go probably top of solid with this character. I think that it's a little crazy cheesy at the end, but the way that he falls off that bridge with the fake blood, like, I mean, come on. It's Jon Voight being Jon Voight. Speaking of villains in the Mission Impossible film, we got a few to get through now. I think 3 of the next 4 are villains. Next is Philip Seymour Hoffman, who plays Owen Davian in Mission Impossible 3. Where's the rabbit's foot? This is a fantastic Philip Seymour Hoffman performance, which is pretty much every performance he's ever turned in. He is one of the all-time great actors. I don't say that lightly. Rest in peace to a true, true legend in cinema. I have to go great with Owen Davian. I think that he's probably the best villain in the Mission Impossible franchise, and it cements him as one of the best in the opening of the film when he has a gun pointed to Ethan's supposed wife at the time, and he's counting up to 10, and he's like, "You don't think I'll do it?" Yelling in Ethan's face, really setting him up as this menace. And then as we find later in the film, he doesn't play a lot of games. He will get in your face, he will get in your head and play mind games with you. He is the standout of Mission Impossible 3, making him not only a great villain, but a great overall character. Next we have Sean Ambrose. This is the main villain of Mission Impossible 2, and this is a pretty meh character. I'm honestly gonna go top of meh though, because I do think as the villain he is better than these two characters, but he's got some moments to shine here. A lot of his lines are really cheesy, and there's this weird like love triangle going on in the movie. He is a huge part of that. I never I'm just laughing at this one moment where he's like sitting in the corner after he fakes out Naya, who's the love interest involved with Ethan and the villain Sean, and he takes his Ethan Hunt mask off to reveal he's the villain, and he's sitting there crying. It's really weird. It gets a little angsty at times, and the melodrama is real. But he has some memorable moments. Other than that, he's just a stand-in to have a villainous presence in Mission Impossible 2, making him a pretty meh character overall. Next, we've got Lindsay. This is a character who dies really quickly in Mission Impossible 3. She has that thing planted in her brain, and the way it explodes, and then we see her eye just kind of go like this. Pretty disturbing, actually. The first time I watched this movie, I was young, and it was like, whoa, that was pretty damn dark. You can't even go solid with this character. She has such a small role in the movie. Yeah, she's like this positive energy for the, you know, the IMF, but ultimately she has a pretty early demise, unfortunately, in the film. So I think the highest I can go with her is meh. I would probably put her I'd say over Declan, I'd say over Atlee, just because, I mean, in the brief, like, 5-10 minute scene she has that charisma with Tom Cruise's character Ethan. I'd go top of meh, just because I think, again, her scene is so pivotal to the film and Ethan Hunt's journey that I think that she deserves to be in the top of meh over these characters, because Sean Ambrose is, yeah, he's the villain, but he's kind of lame, honestly. Moving on, though, we've got August Walker. This is a character played by Henry Cavill, and I might have to retract my previous statement about Philip Seymour Hoffman being the best villain in the franchise, because I think it might just be Henry Cavill's August Walker. This is a character who's set up to be sort of working with Ethan Hunt early on in the film, but as it's revealed, he is the main big bad villain. Not only is he the greatest physical threat Ethan Hunt has had to go toe-to-toe with, I mean, just look at the man. Henry Cavill's jacked in this movie, and he kicks ass in the bathroom fight. We've seen it all. But he is fairly smart. He gets outsmarted, ultimately. Henry Cavill plays it so well. He's got, you know, all the mannerisms of a villain down, and the helicopter IMAX shot scene, chef's kiss. I think I gotta go great with August Walker. Do I go over Owen Davian? I think I do, so I'll put him in top of great. So I'm retracting my previous statement. These are the two villains I like the best. There's one more we'll talk about that's really high too. Moving on, we've got Claire. This is a character from the first Mission Impossible who is Jim's wife, which is Jon Voight's character, and she's the only one who manages to survive the opening of the film, which is a little shady. So Ethan Hunt is sort of questioning her over the course of the movie. He warms up to her and starts to trust her, but in the end, she's ultimately revealed to be a villain who was working with Jon Voight's character all along. I would have to go solid with her. I think back of solid's appropriate. I take these two characters over her, but her character constantly had me questioning her motives. Like, I was genuinely like, is she good? Is she manipulating Ethan? I went back and forth on it, and I've seen the movie. That's how good it is. The first Mission Impossible is still so clever all these years later, in my mind at least. But next we've got Krieger, I believe is how you pronounce the character's name, played by Jean Reno, that helps out Ethan when they break into Langley, and we get one of the most iconic scenes in the franchise when Ethan's hanging down in the room and he can't touch the floor or it'll set off the alarm. He's the one that's actually holding the rope while Ethan is dangling over the floor there. So I would say this character is solid. I would go probably like right here over Claire. I think the character physically poses a threat to Ethan. He pilots the helicopter in the final act of the film that's trying to kill Ethan and rescue Jon Voight's character. There's one scene that stands out with him. It's where Ethan and him are having a showdown talking about the disc, and all along this character Krieger had the real disc, and Ethan was like, you think I would actually give that to you? And it ultimately convinces Krieger to throw away the quote fake disc when in reality it is the real one. So he gets outsmarted by Ethan. But then we've got Luther, our boy, one of the only characters aside from Ethan who's actually been in every single Mission Impossible film. You already know he's going in best of the best. I'd go right behind Benji. I think that this is the big three I was referring to earlier. I go Ethan 1, Benji 2, and Luther 3. But you can't really have a Mission Impossible film without Luther. He's Ethan's right-hand man. He's been that way since the beginning. He knows Ethan almost better than Ethan knows himself. And so we get to see him kind of pass knowledge on to the supporting characters that are introduced, whether that be, you know, Ethan's wife at a certain point or even Ilsa Faust, who we'll talk about very shortly. But Luther is that guy. You love him. He's always helpful. And Ving Rhames played so well. It might be Ving Rhames' most iconic role aside from Marcellus Wallace in Pulp Fiction, but yes, this is the big three of the franchise, and I'm very comfortable in saying that. But moving on, we've got Ilsa Faust, played by Rebecca Ferguson. She's in the 5th, 6th, and 7th Mission Impossible films. It took a while to warm up to this character, because she's kind of playing both sides for a bit in Rogue Nation until we finally figure out the true motives of her character by the end. Love her in Fallout, and she's great in Dead Reckoning Part 1. I would have to say, honestly, she adds so much to these films. I think I have to go back of best of the best. I think that she is probably the 4th or 5th best character in this franchise, and her introduction was fantastic. She's sort of this newer love interest with Ethan Hunt in the McQuarrie era films, but not only that, she kicks so much ass in this franchise. I mean, she's awesome, she's smart, has some like humorous moments. She deserves a spot in best of the best, and Ilsa definitely changed this franchise for the better in my opinion. Moving on though, we've got Musgrave. This is a character played by Billy Crudup in the the 3rd Mission Impossible film. I would have to go solid here. There's so many great scenes between him and Ethan where one in particular stands out. Ethan is being held captive, and Billy Crudup's character walks in and he's like not speaking. He's just mouthing, you know, words, and Ethan's lip reading, and he helps Ethan break out. And ultimately, the twist is that he was a villain all along, sort of working with Owen Davian. Kind of a scumbag move, honestly, but I would say he's solid. I would go right here in solid, I feel that's appropriate. I really did like the introduction of Grace, and then John Voight, one of the better villains in the franchise, so that feels appropriate, right in the middle of solid for Musgrave. Moving on, though, we've got Brandt. This is the character played by Jeremy Renner, and for a bit there, they were trying to maybe transition into this being Jeremy Renner's full-on franchise, because they tried to force, you know, the Bourne Legacy and then Mission Impossible. It's hard to say. I don't think it would have worked with Brandt. I think this is Ethan Hunt's franchise, his baby, almost. This is kind of tough, guys, I'm not gonna lie. I like Brandt, but it's not like he was that necessary. As we saw, he's not in Fallout. That's the best Mission Impossible film. He's not in Dead Reckoning. So as much as I do like him, especially in Ghost Protocol when he's like a part of the team, we get the whole backstory on him, supposed to be, you know, watching over Ethan's wife. He has this great arc in that film with him and Ethan. I would probably have to go great with him. I don't know if he's one of the top 5 best characters in the franchise, so I'd go great. I'd probably go, I think these two villains might be better. So I'd take Seymour Hoffman's villain and Henry Cavill's villain over Brandt, but he's still a great character. That's no shot to William Brandt. Moving on, we've got Zen, I believe is this character's name, from Mission Impossible 3. Yet another character who doesn't really have that much of a role at all, actually. So the more I think about it, the more I go, wait, is she actually a bad character? And then I'm like, yeah, I think there actually are a few bad ones. So we're going to move Declan down to bad, and I think that that character goes in bad. These two are from MI3. They have like barely any lines in the film, very minor roles. And then the more I think about it, I'm like, you know what? I think, yeah, Atlee being in man. Like these two little side crew, they're just filler for Mission Impossible 3 to fill out a team. Like their names aren't memorable. What they do in the film is not memorable. So they definitely deserve to be in the bad tier in my mind. Next we have Hunley. This is Alec Baldwin's character. He's introduced in Rogue Nation, and then he's the secretary at the end of that film moving into Fallout. I like him a lot more in Fallout. They purposely make him more likable. He actually gets to do some work in the field in that film. He wasn't the most likable in Rogue Nation, but in Fallout you can really root for him, and he's more accepting of Ethan Hunt's rebellious personality. I would probably say, in the grand scheme of things, Hunley is top of solid for me. I think that he's just short of great. If he was more likable in Rogue Nation, I'd be willing to put him in the great tier, but top of solid feels appropriate for now. So yeah, moving on, we've got Jane. This is a character from Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, who again, just part of this crew to fill out the roster. She, however, has a bigger role than the two side characters from Mission Impossible 3. I would say she's almost in solid, actually. Like, I would go pretty high in solid. She kicks ass in this film, and especially in the Dubai sequence when she fights Léa Seydoux's character, whose name's escaping me. When they have their hand-to-hand fight, like, that's a great moment. So I would go somewhere in solid, I feel, like right about here. That feels appropriate for her. Right in the middle of solid, because she's like, yeah, I liked her character, and I honestly wish that she came back in one of the later films, and maybe she will one day, but it might be a little too late to do that now. But next we've got Kittridge, Eugene Kittridge, in the first film and in Dead Reckoning Part 1. This is a character who, anytime he speaks, the nature of the conversation is likely serious, and it automatically has me tuned into every word that he says. I gotta go great with Kittridge. I would probably go like right here, actually, like second, and I honestly think he's that great of a character. You know what? I'm gonna put Owen Davian over him. That feels right. These two villains are so good. I would put Kittridge right here in the great tier. In the first film, he obviously has the scene with Ethan where the aquarium tank explodes. But in Dead Reckoning Part 1, I was fascinated with the direction they took his character. And by the end, I was like, okay, Kittridge is actually a great, great character. So yeah, I love the way that him and Ethan have these stare downs with these Dutch angles and these close-up shots. It's super intense, so he deserves a spot in great. Next we have Gabriel. This is the villain in Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. This is the actor who I was familiar with his work in Ozark Season 1 prior to watching this movie. It's hard to place Gabriel because we don't actually know enough about him yet for him to be one of the better villains in the franchise. He's not in Best of the Best, he's not in Great, but he's not outright bad. So he lies somewhere in the solid to meh tier for me. He was one of the least interesting parts of this film because it's not like he is outright the villain. There's sort of this entity he's working with that more so poses the main threat to Ethan and his crew. So I need a little more information on Gabriel to go much higher with him. In fact, I prefer Jon Voight's villain from the first film. I'll be honest, Gabriel's a weak link of Dead Reckoning Part 1 for me. I was more afraid of the technology or the entity he was working with than Gabriel himself. Still a lot of question marks with his character. You know, they set up this mystery around him and this intrigue, and I think that'll be answered and we'll have payoff in Part 2. But as it stands right now, I think I really have to go top of meh with Gabriel. I think that meh feels appropriate right now because we don't see the full vision yet. I say the same thing about the Spot from Across the Spider-Verse. Maybe once I see Part 2 I can go higher, but the full vision of this villain hasn't been seen yet, so because of that, top of meh feels right. It's just, he's right close to that solid range, but he's not one of the most memorable villains from this franchise, to say the least. Moving on, we've got the White Widow, played by Vanessa Kirby. She's teetering solid to great for me somewhere. She has a great role in the film. Vanessa Kirby, an outstanding actress. I look at who's in bad, she's definitely not there. I look at who's in meh, she's over them. She's not one of the best of the best. In great, I don't know if I can go over those characters. Solid feels right, and you know what? I'll put White Widow. It comes down to, do I like Grace or White Widow more? I don't know. I think I have to put her behind Grace. I think that these two characters are really close to each other, and if you've seen Dead Reckoning Part 1, you probably know something I might be referring to. But yeah, they feel like they go right and solid. And as I'm looking at this, why is Hundley so high? Hundley's gonna drop back to right here for me, and honestly, yeah, I think I might actually have to drop Void as well. Like, that's the fun of these tier lists. You guys get to see me edit them in live action. That felt a little too high, yeah. Grace was, I mean, the more I think about it, she really was sort of a scene stealer in that movie. I love her introduction to the series. I had to do some switcheroos there. I feel more comfortable with that. So yeah, I'm rocking with that for now. Next we have Julia, who's Ethan's wife. She's in the third film and the sixth film and parts of other films, the very end of Ghost Protocol. I mean, I love her relationship with Ethan. Honestly, I think I have to go back of great with her. Because when she is in the films, like, Ethan is so humanized by her. They have this really precious relationship, and I just feel awful at times for this relationship. It's like right person, just wrong time, or almost wrong universe, because Ethan's always going to have to be saving the world. So they have like a really beautiful relationship, and even seeing it sort of have closure and fallout, it was like bittersweet in a way. So I think she's a great character. Next we have Simon Lane. This is sort of the villain of the fifth film, part of the sixth film, and his presence is always lingering. I love the way that Simon Lane delivers his lines. I'd honestly have to go great with Simon Lane. I'd go not as high as August or Owen Davian. I'd probably put him like right here. Like, I think that he as a character is a little more interesting than these two, but I still take the three I have over him. So yeah, Simon Lane and great feels appropriate. He's such a menace, especially in Rogue Nation. It almost feels like he's unbeatable at times. That's how you know you've got a great villain on your hands. Next, we've got Lawrence Fishburne's character. That's right, Lawrence Fishburne is in the Mission Impossible franchise. He plays a character named Theodore Brassel in Mission Impossible 3, and his character is what you would define as meh. I would probably put him like right here, right in the middle of meh. I mean, he's playing one of the most generic governmental figures you've seen. Nothing new. It's Lawrence Fishburne, yeah, but the character is not anything special, so meh is appropriate. Next we got the Prime Minister from Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, the same actor who plays Lord Cutler Beckett in the Pirates of the Caribbean films, the second and third to be precise. I think I gotta go meh with the Prime Minister over Atlee. That, like, Atlee and him have a lot of scenes together. Give me Prime Minister over Atlee, but I think Sean Ambrose as a villain is a little more interesting than the Prime Minister. Like, these two characters, they're part of this really sort of funny reveal at the end and this huge sort of exposition dump regarding the Syndicate. But other than that, they don't do too much for me. They never have. Next, we have Max from the first Mission Impossible film. I believe the White Widow is actually Max's daughter, so that's a cool little Easter egg in the franchise. I would probably have to put her in, you guessed it, the meh tier. At the top of meh, because I do think we forget how good of a role she has in the first Mission Impossible. She's part of a plotline that can get a little confusing at times, but I do like the way that her and Ethan sort of are trying to meet up with that internet search. It's very bizarre how technology has advanced so far in this franchise, really, but Max is a meh character, but top of meh. Next we've got Paris, played by Klementieff, I believe that's how you pronounce her last name. She plays Mantis in the Guardians films, and she's introduced in Dead Reckoning Part 1, and she's badass. I mean, she really does kick ass in this film, whether it's the car chase scenes or even some hand-to-hand combat fights. I really liked her character. She doesn't have a lot of lines of dialogue, but she's got a really solid screen presence. I would put her right here in solid. I think that I take Grace and White Widow over her, but I still really enjoyed her introduction to the franchise and think that she had some really standout scenes for me in particular. Next we have Angela Bassett's character from Fallout. Erica Sloan, I believe, is her name. Another one of those generic government characters that doesn't really have that big of a role. I would probably say she is meh. Meh feels right, somewhere in the middle, like right here. Over Theodore Brassel, played by Lawrence Fishburne, but right in the middle of Mag, and she doesn't do much. She has like 2 scenes, and half the time she's like FaceTiming in from a phone or computer, so meh feels right. And then last we've got Naya. This is the love interest from Mission Impossible 2. Another one of those characters that doesn't do too much for me. She is fine enough. I mean, maybe one day we'll see her return in the franchise, but I look at everyone in solid, and these are all like really solid characters. She's not better than any of them. I would put her in meh, probably decently high, because she's pretty important to that film, and I don't hate her and Ethan's chemistry. She actually has like attributes of the character Grace in terms of them both being thieves, but I would probably go right here for now. That feels right. Right there in the meh tier. Again, Mission Impossible has some amazing characters. It's got some really great ones, a lot of solid ones, but at the same time, the meh to bad tier, these could almost blend together as characters that are like pretty forgettable. That's kind of what I use to characterize them in those tiers. But that's going to do it for my tier list ranking of all these Mission Impossible movie characters. Let me know your favorite characters besides Ethan Hunt in the comments down below, and hit that like button. Subscribe and hit that notification bell to help reach my goal of 85,000 subscribers here on the channel. It would mean a lot. And check out my Patreon link down below for early videos, extra access to videos, the Discord server, all that and more. Anything goes a long way, so check it out, link down below. But thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.